So let's take a look at the environment, shall we? And a little bit through the eyes of a girl that is all hot and bothered about where she ended up being and now has the attention of the world, talking angry talk about what the world has done to her. Now, before I get started, as usual, let me make a few disclaimers. I don't know anything. Don't take me serious at all. It's all bullshit. I'm just a guy talking. I don't know anything. I don't do anything. I don't know anything. I'm completely useless for you, for me, for everyone. But then so are you, so don't worry about it. If there is to be any value in this goddamn video for you, then you are going to have to do something. You're going to have to put that value in, because just listening to words of somebody coming out of their mouth really isn't going to help you a goddamn thing. Alright, so we're going to talk about not just this girl that is all moralistic and shit about the environment, which, you know, I love the environment, I love walking through it. I think we should have more of it. I think we should never destroy anything unless we really must, right? And then enjoy it, because hey, if you must, you might as well enjoy it. And I have nothing against the fact that this confused girl is, you know, getting so much attention in this confused world. It makes perfect sense. And in a way, she kind of reminds me of me, right? He's all rah, 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 blah, 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 talking about bullshit. Well, guess who's doing that too? Alright, so I have nothing against left-winged people or right-winged people. I guess they're all angels with one wing. You know, it's all good. I understand everything, everyone. I see your point. I see why you think it's valid. I thank you for being here, because you've made it possible for me to see through all of that. And whatever I'm going to say is going to be one-sided bullshit either way, so they can see through me just as much. And that's fine. That's not even fine, it's the freaking point, right? We live our own game, so my game isn't better than your game, and your game isn't better or worse than anyone's game. It's just a freaking game. So play it, enjoy it, and fucking, right, have someone on TV be all angry about things, right? But let's just zoom in and pretend that there's something there to look at, and then we can kind of see, well, why do I think it's total bullshit? Even though everything's bullshit, this just like stands out just a little bit more than all the other bullshit, because it has like this extra dimension of bullshit to it. It's like bullshit squared. And I just like kicking against that stuff. So there's this girl who, I don't know how old she is, but I would say she's like 14 or 15, who's supposed to be in school, according to her own words, but she can be, right? Because there's people pointing a gun at her head saying, you need to go to fucking places in the world. I don't know if she's flying there or go, you know, driving a bike, because that's better for the environment. But anyway, she's at places where there are grown-ups or people who pretend to be grown-ups, and she's saying things like, because of you, I can't be in school, and because of you, I don't know, the world's gonna explode, or things are dying. Things of that nature. And of course there's people saying, oh, that's so brave of her, you know, she's finally saying what we should be saying, but we're too scared to say anything, so we're just waiting here to be executed. But she's not doing that, she's yelling and talking and looking really sternly. And then there's other people saying, like, why is this girl not in school? Right? She should learn about capitalism and then the wonders that it offers, and how the whole world was built on capitalism and it shall be built even further, right? The thing is, I would like to look at two things, right? I think we should forget about the girl as the girl specifically, right? She's just a voice that is saying something that people find appeals to them, and because she is a girl, we can kind of project our ideas about what children are, and then the fact that there's this girl standing up for this, all morally high ground, saying things to businessmen and politicians, right, to the psychopaths, that really gets us going, apparently. And people are inspired by it and blah, 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 blah. And they're going to talk about it all day long, right? And then there's locally, there was this, what is it? Like environmental demonstration or strike or right activism. Do you understand that activism most of the time is like anti-actionism? Like, we're gonna strike, which means we're not gonna do anything. We're not gonna strike, right? We're not gonna take to the street and strike people. No, we're gonna not work. And we're gonna stand here and say, this is what we think, and that's why we're not working. So, somebody fix this for us, please. And if not, then I'll just go back to work tomorrow. But hey, at least I made my voice heard, right? Activism. The non-act sold as activism. The non-strike called striking. It's interesting how we fool ourselves. And of course it's the weak versus the strong. And I'm not saying weak is bad or strong is good or the other way around, right? It's just, like, politics is very simple. You have those that have or believe they will have in the current set of rules. And they are what we call right-wing, I guess, and they vote for people that they believe will keep this thing going the way it is, right? The status quo. And then you have the other people that do not believe they will have, or that not have right now in the current system, and they want someone to be in charge who will blow up the current system. So people are wondering, like, why are such crazy people and such crazy parties getting the power these days? Well, it's because we've lost all hope. If you're 45 years old and you've seen this thing go on for like 20, 25 years, you've been voting and nothing is happening. Nothing is happening at all. Then you of course you get radical. If there's some guy saying, I want to blow up this country, you're like, fuck it, let's try it. Let's see what happens, man. Because right now, with what was going on for the last 25 years, I've been fucked. So I will vote for anyone who says, blow up this thing. And then there's other guys saying, well, blow up this thing. Are you crazy? It's going to be revolution. It's going to be blood in the streets. Well, they just worry that it's going to be their blood in the streets. They're just worried that someone's going to come and take what they have. Or take away the opportunity that they think they have because they're so fucking awesome that eventually this system will reward them. Right? So this is what's going on. And so you have people that have things, right? And this is the moral side of the thing, right? Environmental bullshit. It's moralistic or it's about the medium, right? So it's about what is right and how does this work. And on the moral side, of course, there are people who are building themselves up, who are glorifying themselves by not having things and by thinking we should protect, right, the innocent nature, because they don't have anything, so they can't build themselves up through the things they have. And of course they're going to be moralistic because that is what they do have, is morals, right? If I don't have 25 cars, then not having 25 cars is the good thing. And if I have 25 cars, then of course having 25 cars is the good thing. And it's not because having 25 cars is good or bad, because it's just whatever. But it's the perspective on it. And if you live in a system, in a medium, where this whole thing is a fight, with like a zero-sum game, there's an X amount of things, and we're going to have to divide that, then if I end up on the losing side of this, I need to say that the system is bad, or the people that have one is bad. So you have the weak, which is the moralistic, and then you have the strong, which are the guys saying this is right. It makes perfect sense. Alright, so after that little interruption, let's see if I can make the argument a little bit more logic or a little bit more structured, as I was kind of rambling, so it's good I got interrupted. Basically what I'm saying here is that there are two ways in which there is a mistaken perspective on what's going on here and what to think about it. Now, let me be very blunt and say that talking is not going to solve anything, right? Having political forums and having girls or boys or children or adults talking frustratedly about what they think is right or wrong, it doesn't really change anything. Right? We have to understand that it's just entertainment. Right? And this girl, I don't know if she's completely confused already in the culture, or the culture is projecting this on her, right? Is she already building herself up through this thing, or does she really believe it? And maybe her parents are influencing in this regard, I don't know, and it doesn't matter, but she's being turned into a dancing monkey, right? She's entertainment. She has to come and perform. And of course, this will end bad in the sense that she will start believing that she has something to say that has value, when it's just blah blah that means nothing. And where's she going to go from here, right? If she wants to keep this thing going, she needs to do bigger things, say worse things, or maybe really become an activist and blow up things, right? That's or maybe she's going to conform, and she's going to be a political party, and they're going to take over, right? So there's two main points that I want to make that have some interaction with each other. And it's saying that this whole environmental discussion is bullshit because it has a moral aspect, and morals are just choices that have no validity whatsoever. And the medium in which this whole thing operates has this whole thing inherently built in, so we can't really change it. So what I was trying to say is that if you are someone who doesn't have what he wants to have, he's going to use poor things to glorify himself. So he's going to save the whales, he's going to save the environment, he's going to save people that have nothing to eat, right? Because he's not helping that, he's not there doing it, but he's going to talk about it and say, look, what's happening over there, and it's because of you. You made this happen. You're a bad person, you're a bad politician, you're a bad business guy, right? You're doing your thing, but look what the outcome is. And it's because of you. You make choices that are bad, right? I am the one who is awake, and I am the one who makes the right choice. But you, I'm going to say you're awake too, and that makes you an asshole, because you're doing things that you know are bad. You're like a thief or a murderer, right? You eat meat, you murder things. So this whole environmental thing is a moralistic debate. It's about what is the right thing to do. The people that are on the environmental side are glorifying themselves as victims. They're saying, okay, this is happening to us, we can't help it, I can't do anything about it, but I can say that it's stupid, and if I give the right arguments, then people might say, well, she's right. It's crazy that we're doing this. She is indeed to be glorified. She is great. She has balls. She is right. She is something special. And she says, yes, I know. Because I would want to be in school, but I can't because you people are making me do this. Right? Well, why aren't you in school if you want to be in school? What do you think is going on here? What is going to... Right? But we'll get to that. So if you don't have things, if you don't have material, then you need to become conceptual or spiritual. So of course the person who doesn't have something has to be the better person. Because if you're a worse person and you don't have anything, you really don't have anything. So the people on the left side, of course, are going to say, we have the moral high ground. We see the world in a way that is way more logical than you, right? Things are connected and we are responsible for what's going on here, and we need to leave the world in a good place. Because we don't have power and money and all these things. Otherwise we would glorify ourselves through that. But we can't, so we have to choose our internal world. And the question you could ask is, what they end up probably fighting amongst themselves eventually is, what is there to give up, right? What are we going to do? Okay, now we say, your moralistic argument is correct. Now what? Right? Do all the left people don't use mobile phones? They don't serve the web? So we don't have the need for all the networks and data transferring and the phones being built, right? Or where does this go into this place where you say, well, this is obviously wrong. There should be no private jets. I mean, Boeings, where there's mass transport, those are okay. The jets, no, they're terrible. Or no, there should be no planes at all, but there should be cars, or no cars but just bikes. But who's going to make all the bikes, and where are we going to make the bikes from, and what should the factory look like that makes those bikes? Or we shouldn't have bikes at all, we should just walk around, and then, we should all work the earth locally to build our own stuff. But with what? Can we use tools? Or are tools bad too? Because who's going to make the tools? And from what? And how are we going to measure the CO2 being sent into the world? Because we have this way of measuring it now, but the whole world and its history was needed for it to make it. So are we going to throw it in the sea because it's bad, it's contaminated? Or we shouldn't throw it in the sea because maybe like a whale will eat the CO2 equipment? I mean, right? We all end up waking up, so to say, in what's going on externally. And you can blame people because they have a certain perspective on the world that's different than you, but who's going to pay for that? Meaning, who's going to give up what, right? If you really care about the world so much, suicide is the only option, man. I'm saying. It's the best, because you're always like CO2 negative, right? Nothing you do will help. It's all detrimental. It's just a matter of how detrimental will you be? What impact is acceptable? Because there's going to be impact. And then now we're going to go to this place where you say, well, you're only allowed to have one child or no children, right? We need to do something about the population, because whatever we're going to do, if we have 7, 8, 9, 10 billion people on the earth, there's going to be impact. And there's going to be some space taken up that perhaps used to be taken up by plants or animals or whatever. There's going to be some filth to deal with. So this whole thing, it gets murky real quick. And on a practical side, the thing is, you have to understand what a medium is. You have to understand what a medium does, right? Media are contextual processes with a certain perspective, right? They have a bias. You are a medium. And your medium processes awareness through the bias of confirming the self to be and the possibility of expansion. And then has as an output thoughts and actions that are somewhat aligned with that. And this output becomes the new input, and thus we have something going on. And the medium, any medium, has as its main objective the continuation of itself. So if you look at capitalism or the capitalistic system or whatever we have going on here, the money system, whatever you want to call it, it's a medium. It's a medium that deals in a way with the division of stuff, right? And it has certain perspectives on how that should go, but the most important thing of it is that it has a desire to continue. So whatever it can use to continue, whatever its fuel is good enough, right? The money medium doesn't care what you buy as long as you buy something, right? The seller doesn't care what you buy or what you're going to do with it, but there needs to be a sale. So inherent to this medium, which is created by humans, is the same bias as what the humans have. Mainly, it needs to exist, and it needs to be logical, so it's valid. And secondly, it needs to expand or grow, meaning there needs to be more. There needs to be more of me. So this medium that we use for the division of resources has the same thing. It has to run. It doesn't matter what you use iron or seawater or the environment for, as long as it's used for something. Secondly, it's quantitative, right? The whole thing is valued through a flat qualification, right? So the quality of the thing is its size, its quantity, just like we do with human life. Oh, well, he's 97 years old. That's really old. He has a full life, right? Oh, this kid died when he was 12. It's terrible. He missed out, right? Do you understand? It's all the age, the length of your staying here determines the value or the thing you've experienced, how valuable it was, is quantified or qualified through its quantity. So the older you are, the more life you had. Right? We don't know anything about intensity. We don't know anything about density of experience. We don't know about relaxing and having a day like being experienced so fully that it feels like a week. Because we rush through the day. Because we have to get to the next. We gotta do a lot of things. The more things you do, the better. Right? I watched 10 shows today instead of 3. So I had a good day. I had a better day than yesterday. I went to the vacation and we drank all these cocktails and we went to 25 places and I have pictures of all of them, right? It's all, we qualify things through the quantity. And of course the medium that we build, our child, the thing that we put outside of us, it does the same thing. So the medium doesn't care what we do with it, as long as we do something with it. And it only cares about running and having things run through it. And if it can run faster, that's great. And if it can expand, so to say, well, let's do that. So this whole growth mindset, or the desire of the economy to expand and to grow, it's because that's what we are. And this money thing that flans everything to numbers, even human lives, well, that's what we do as well. It's exactly the same thing. So you can look at what this medium is using for fuel and say, well, this is the wrong fuel, right? We shouldn't have airplanes, but we should have different things. That's not going to change anything, right? You're not going to change the world by creating this, how do I say this environmentally aware company, right? Where we have this thing where there's people that have companies that want to change the world in a good way. Well, it's completely a delusion, because whatever is good is your delusion. You're going to claim something, this is going to change things for the good, but you're still going to use the medium that has as a perspective on the world, as a bias, that it needs to use things up from the world and then turn it into something else, right? The process is take something from the nature, process into something artificial, and sell it to someone who needs this. This is the method. So I'm going to create shoes, but then every time I sell a pair of shoes, I'm going to give a pair to someone in Africa. Or I'm going to plant a tree, right? It's still fucking making a ruckus. It's still manipulating shit. It's still creating all this excitement, taking this plant out of the ground and putting a new one in. Like it's better. Do you understand? It's completely delusional. The only way to have a positive impact is to take out something that has a negative impact, which is us. Right? And let's be clear, the world isn't in trouble. There's no danger to it. We are little ants. We aren't going to destroy the whole thing. And even if we are, I mean, it doesn't matter. Right? If we are so hung up about the extermination of life, we should blame the meteorite that frickin' killed off all the dinosaurs and created the space and room for humans, if you believe that's what happened, right? That meteorite was a bad meteorite. It was really against nature because it frickin' destroyed all these life forms. And it even gave rise to this life form that is so destructive that it will do that again, but slowly. So the child of the meteorite is a slow destructor. Like, who cares? What does it matter? First there were dinosaurs, now they're not. Okay. First there were dolphins, maybe in the future they're not. I mean, not to sound insensitive here, but who gives a fuck about dolphins? Well, dolphins are very smart and they can feel things and they communicate in a way their brain is so... Like, okay, whatever. There was a child who died of a disease. That's terrible too. But it's just a disease, it happens, it's terrible for the parents, but we move on. Why don't we stop the whole world to look at this? So we could talk about changing priorities and saying poor people should be rich as well, and diseases should be fought, and money shouldn't just be about buying your own private jet. And I can see where that comes from, right? I can see like the division between people is becoming so large that it becomes really illogical, really difficult to accept, but really it's just the output of the process that we built. And if you want to change anything, you got to change that whole medium. You got to change that whole process. But then you got to wonder, what is right? And that's where medium and moral start playing with each other. Because it all comes down to the question, what is going on here? What do you think is going on here? And what is the function of what's going on here? And what is your function in that thing? And what does that thing have for you in your function? Right? We're functioning content of the function. And the planet has its content in your functioning. And you are content of the planet functioning, right? The planet peoples, right? That's what Alan Watts said. We have been born out of the planet, so we are just as much part of the planet as the planet itself is part of us. We are one thing. And because we kill off a certain species of plants or animals, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't do anything. And if we manage to make the air so thick with chemicals that we can't breathe it, well, that sounds like a silly thing to do. But it doesn't matter. It will be resolved. Don't you worry. Right? Things will be balanced. We don't have to balance things. I mean, you could if you want to have a relaxed experience. But balance isn't something you created. Balance gets created. The thing will be balanced because we live in nature, and nature has or natural law or whatever. It has accurate feedback. So if you keep doing one thing, the feedback will be in line with that thing. And because we are conceptual and we are able to have this grotesque looping where the feedback has nothing to do with the input, we think we have this influence on the world where we can take the balance out of the universe. But that's just ridiculous. And it comes from this entitlement, this idea that what we have going on here is something we can oversee, and that we have a right to things. We have a right to clean air. We have a right to have the dolphins have the right to be dolphins in that place. Right? We control this. We know what's going on here, and we can steer it into a way that makes sense. No, we can't. We don't know what's going on here. We have no idea. And now we get to a place where there's so many people doing so many things that there becomes, how do you say this? There's limits. We're bumping up to the limits. But we are dumb from birth. And we will continue with our bullshit until nature says no. Now you want to say, okay, let's stretch that. We need 200, 300 more years before we really start bouncing up against limits. But we are destructive by nature because we are creative by nature. And the only way we can create is to destroy something. It's like Minecraft. You got to take out a little thing to have a cube to do another thing. And you will continue to do that until there is a limit. That's the feedback we need. We want to be gods. We want to be glorified. And the only way to find the maximum of our glorification is to bump up to something. It's just what it is. That's with the model of adulthood, it's the same thing. You need to learn where the edges is, and then you can break through them and look at things in a completely different way, and the whole thing changes. But it's the way you grow up. And so humans are growing up to the fact that the planet does have limits. And the only way it's going to, how do you say this? The only way it's going to come into our awareness if you only notice the wall when you bump up against it. You might see the wall and someone might shout, look out, there's a wall, we're going to hit it. But you don't learn until you fucking hit the wall. That's just the way it is. And maybe for some people, hitting the wall is a different, right? They hit it when they just slightly hit their heads against it. For other people, they need to bang their heads in it multiple times until they accept that there's a wall. And then the guy who slowly hits it and says, or lightly hits it, says, hey, there's a wall, we should watch out, could be frustrated about the guy who's banging his head and saying, right, in this planet, there should be no right for you to do that. Because I've already come to a conclusion that I need you to come to, but not in your own way, but in my way. Right? This is the moralistic thing. You should learn my lessons. I shouldn't learn your lessons, and I shouldn't have to deal with you learning your own lessons. But then we go back to, what do you think is going on here? Well, what's going on? It's complete bullshit. It's everyone doing their own thing, not understanding anything, and seeing where we end up. And now some person coming on television and saying she's a victim of all these generations that made it so, blah, 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 whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. There's going to be some generation somewhere where they're going to have to deal with this shit. Alright? Because that's the only way it's going to work. And if you want to be some sort of highly evolved society where you don't ever hit the limits because you're so smart, you see the limits coming, and blah, 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 well then do that. But don't fucking just talk about it. You don't get highly evolved through just yelling at each other. Do you understand? Blaming and playing the victim isn't going to help anyone. And just ignoring that and fucking continuing on your death walk to fucking oblivion isn't going to help either. People need to slow down and take a step back. And we got to talk about what do we think is going on here, because if we can kind of see where I think this is coming from, and if I can see where you think this is coming from, then at least there could be some understanding on how we deal with things. Because if we move past the starting point and then just look at what we do, we're never going to understand each other. Because I don't understand you at all. You are not me. And not me makes no sense. And if I can't come to a place where I can take this not me and integrate it into myself, then we're lost. We're never going to find a way, ever. So I have to accept you as me just as much as I have to accept me as me, which is a very difficult thing to do as well. Because I've been built up by this not me, so it's confusion all the way. And that's what the little girl's doing. She's confused, yelling, angry, frustrated, arrogant about, why is this happening to me? What have you done to me? Why don't I understand anything? But of course she can't say this because that would invalidate herself, so she's going to say she understands perfectly well that you're an asshole. And the way you're doing things is completely wrong. And of course, the guy who's doing it completely wrong, which he is going to say, well, fuck you, little girl. I don't know you from Adam. But I do know the whole society's been telling me I should be successful, and now I am successful. And of course, I cheat and I lie a little bit here and there, and I oppress some people. But hey, if I'm not going to sell the cocaine, the other guy's going to sell the cocaine, right? So I might as well make the money. Someone's going to make the money. This thing's going on. I just came here, and this is what's going on. They're just as much the victim as you. Do you understand? We're all victims of this whole thing. As long as we keep telling ourselves that we come to visit in this place, instead of the place having been visited or is visiting us. And it doesn't even matter what you do or what the world is doing. You don't have to leave your house or anything to accept this thing. That's where it starts. You can't save anyone until you save yourself. It's like with the oxygen mask in the plane. If you think you're just going to have to wait for the world to come along and then you can be okay, you're completely fooling yourself. Right? There's this model I used to draw also with the mana flow, where it's like, well, that's ugly. The child starts worrying about global things. And then it starts worrying about local things. And finally it starts worrying about itself. Because the global thing is just an excuse to not deal with yourself. Like what someone in Africa is doing is influencing me. Well, everything is connected because the butterfly effect. But okay, whatever. If that's going on, then I'm a victim, I'm helpless, and I gotta wait for some guy in Africa to do a certain thing, so why worry? Why fucking be upset about it? Well, no. Right? So we worry about global things because we're too scared to deal with ourselves. And then people wake up and say, well, global is bullshit. You gotta worry about local. You gotta, right? You gotta know your butcher, and you gotta know the names of your neighbors. So now I worry about local things because I can influence local things. And I'm still not dealing with this. Because I don't know what's going on here at all, okay? I don't know who I am, what I am, how I am. I don't fucking know anything. And this is very terrifying. So I keep diverting my attention to things that have nothing to do with the real issue. I keep distracting myself. I'm hungry. I'm not even hungry. My body's hungry. I need food. No, you don't. It's confused as well. It has a pattern it wants to follow. And it's not like I don't have anything left here that it could use. I have plenty that it could still use. But it doesn't want to. It doesn't want to do that. It's lazy. Like we're all lazy. So it's saying, fix my problem. Right? I will make you feel hunger and I will make a sound. So you think, oh, I better eat because if I don't, I might get weak. Wait for it. Wait for the weakness. See what happens. We're scared. We're just scared. So finally, if you let go of the global and you let go of the local, you start focusing on you. And not on you as in relation to other people where you say, oh, well, I'm focusing on me and obviously I'm the better person here. Because you're competing with yourself only. You are the game for you. And the other person is the game for himself. And just to say, well, my clothes are made out of freaking this and your clothes are bad. You're a child. You're comparing toys like it means something. So what you do is once you focus on self and you go through that, you figure yourself out in the sense that you can't figure yourself out, but you accept that and you start realizing this play between the self and the not self and the allowing and the doing and the influencing and being influenced and the whole thing. Well, then you can go to the local and you can go to the global and you can build stuff up because you're now doing it from this perspective where you are dancing with it, where you are part of it and it's part of you, and your decisions do not only create the world, they create the self, and the world creates you and you create the world, and it's very interesting. And you don't need anything, so it doesn't need anything to be. And you can accept anything because it's right. Don't think we still have a problem with getting food. We don't have, we fixed that a long time ago. We could just sit around and do nothing all day. If the freaking medium wasn't so hell-bent on just keep churning, we need to use up all resources before the medium can stop. And then we do the recycling thing. Now it's better to recycle. Why? Well, it's less expensive than taking more iron out of the earth. You know what? We should go get into space mining. We should send up rockets to fucking Mars and mine the shit out of Mars. Because we can build more things. The economy will grow. People will have jobs. Like, who gives a fuck? It's a children's game, all the way, from start to finish. This whole space, what the fuck are you gonna find in space? I'm gonna add another layer? We're gonna talk about, you know what happened in space today? There was space terrorists. Right, global isn't enough anymore to distract us. We need fucking the whole universe being involved into our drama. It's a silly thing, man. You're just a really small little game, and it's already here, and you already have everything you need. And whatever you think you need, it's just fooling yourself. It's bullshit. And you'll never understand this thing. And you don't need to understand this thing. You're just telling yourself you do. But that's the game. That's the fucking trip. The trip is you're in a trip. And you don't understand, but you want to. And you think you can. That's this thing. Alright. Have fun with this one. Alright. Good luck. And see you next time.